Some emotional attraction problems don't begin with cheating, or anger, or even rejection. They begin with a woman slowly realizing she cannot emotionally relax around a man. Not because he's evil, not because he's weak, but because something about his behavior keeps her nervous system alert instead of safe. And the strange part? Most men never notice when this happens, because women rarely say it directly. They just pull back emotionally. They stop opening up. They become polite instead of warm, present instead of connected. A woman can be deeply attracted to a man physically and still feel emotionally unsafe with him at the exact same time. So the real question is this: what are the behaviors that silently destroy emotional safety, even when a man believes he's doing everything right? Because once you see them, you'll start noticing them everywhere. In conversations, in relationships, maybe even in yourself. Most men think attraction is built through confidence, status, humor, or chemistry. And yes, those things matter. But long-term emotional attraction operates on a deeper psychological level. A woman asks herself one question unconsciously: can I emotionally breathe around this man? Can she express herself without punishment? Can she be imperfect without tension? Can she feel seen without feeling controlled? Psychologists who study attachment theory often describe emotional safety as one of the strongest predictors of relationship stability. Not excitement, not charm, safety. And here's the important distinction. Emotional safety is not softness. It's not being passive. And it's definitely not becoming agreeable to avoid conflict. In fact, emotionally safe men are often the calmest, strongest, and most grounded people in the room. In this video, we're breaking down 3 behaviors that quietly make women feel emotionally unsafe, and what emotionally intelligent men do differently instead. Because sometimes attraction doesn't disappear suddenly. Sometimes it suffocates slowly. A woman tells her boyfriend she wants a night alone after a stressful week. At first, he says, "Yeah, no problem." But within minutes, his energy changes. His replies become shorter. His tone becomes colder. He says things like, "Do whatever you want," or "Clearly I'm not important." Now, technically, he didn't yell, he didn't insult her, but emotionally, the room no longer feels safe. This is emotional volatility, and it's one of the fastest ways to make a woman emotionally guarded around a man. Because the issue isn't emotion itself. Women are not afraid of male emotion. They're afraid of unpredictability. A man whose mood changes suddenly based on disappointment creates emotional tension. The woman starts monitoring his reactions instead of expressing herself honestly. Psychologically, this activates what therapists often call hypervigilance. She begins thinking carefully before speaking, not because she's manipulative, but because she's trying to avoid emotional fallout. And eventually, something dangerous happens. She stops being authentic. A lot of men think emotional safety means never showing emotion. That's not true. Emotionally safe men absolutely express disappointment, but they do it without emotional punishment. There's a difference between saying, "I was looking forward to seeing you," and making her feel guilty for having a boundary. One communicates emotion, the other communicates instability. Here's what grounded men understand. Your emotions are your responsibility, not her burden to manage. That mindset changes everything. Because when a woman knows she can disappoint you occasionally without emotional chaos, trust deepens. And trust is what allows attraction to relax into intimacy. But emotional volatility leads directly into the second behavior, and this one is even more subtle. Imagine this. A woman opens up about stress at work. Maybe she's overwhelmed. Maybe she feels emotionally exhausted. Before she even finishes explaining, the man interrupts. "Well, you should have handled that differently." Honestly, that's not a big deal. You're overthinking it. Now, logically, he may believe he's helping, but emotionally, she feels alone while sitting right next to him. One of the deepest forms of emotional unsafety is feeling emotionally dismissed. And many men do this unintentionally because they approach conversations like problems to solve instead of experiences to understand. But emotional connection is not built through immediate solutions. It's built through emotional attunement. That means being present enough to understand the feeling underneath the words. Sometimes a woman is not asking for strategy. She's asking unconsciously, can this man emotionally hold space for me without trying to control my experience? And when the answer is no, she slowly stops sharing vulnerable parts of herself. This is why emotionally intelligent men listen differently. They don't rush to defend themselves, they don't compete with her emotions, and they don't turn every conversation into a courtroom debate. Instead, they slow down. They ask questions, they clarify, they stay curious. Something as simple as, that sounds exhausting, or, I can understand why that affected you, can completely change the emotional atmosphere. Because validation does not mean agreement, it means recognition. And recognition is one of the deepest psychological human needs. Here's something most men miss. Women often test emotional safety through small moments first, not giant confessions. She notices how you react when she disagrees with you, when she's emotional, when she says no, when she expresses discomfort. Those tiny moments determine whether she opens up more or slowly closes the emotional door. And here's the twist most people never talk about. Some men appear confident socially, but still make women feel emotionally unsafe privately. Because confidence is not emotional regulation. A man can dominate a room and still crumble emotionally the moment he feels rejected, criticized, or emotionally uncertain. And ironically, women often feel safest around men who don't need constant emotional reassurance from them. Think about that carefully, because the strongest emotional presence is usually calmness under discomfort, not performance under attention. This one cuts deeper than most men realize. A woman opens up about an insecurity. Maybe it's about her past, her body, her fears, her trust issues. And during an argument weeks later, the man throws it back at her. Maybe indirectly, maybe sarcastically, maybe disguised as a joke. But the damage happens instantly, because now she learns something dangerous. Anything vulnerable I share can later be used against me. And once that happens, emotional intimacy collapses. Psychologically, vulnerability requires safety. The brain literally evaluates whether emotional exposure is dangerous or safe. That's why betrayal inside relationships hurts so deeply. It violates emotional trust, not just logic. And many men weaponize vulnerability without realizing it, sometimes through mockery, sometimes through passive-aggressive comments, sometimes through public embarrassment. Even subtle phrases like, well, you're always insecure anyway, can leave emotional scars that last for years. Because the issue isn't the sentence itself, it's what the sentence communicates. You are not emotionally safe with me. Emotionally mature men understand something powerful. When someone trusts you with vulnerability, they are handing you access to their inner world. That is not leverage. It is responsibility. And this applies beyond romantic relationships too. Friendships, marriage, family. Every emotionally healthy relationship depends on the same principle: safety before intimacy. Without safety, people perform. With safety, people connect. And this is where many men accidentally sabotage attraction. They believe attraction grows through pressure, dominance, emotional games, or making a woman earn emotional peace. But mature attraction grows differently. It grows through emotional consistency, not perfection. Consistency. A calm nervous system is attractive. A grounded presence is attractive. A man who can handle discomfort without becoming emotionally reactive becomes deeply magnetic over time. Because emotionally safe men create emotional freedom around them, and freedom is rare. At the deepest level, emotional safety is really about one thing. Can someone be human around you? Can they make mistakes without fear? Can they express emotions without punishment? Can they disagree without losing connection? Because many people grow up believing love must be managed carefully. That affection disappears if they upset someone. That honesty creates conflict. That vulnerability is dangerous. So when a woman finally meets a man whose presence feels emotionally steady, Something inside her relaxes, not because he's perfect, but because she no longer feels she has to emotionally survive the relationship. And here's what's important. This isn't only about women. Men need emotional safety too, deeply. But many men were never taught how to create it because they were never shown it themselves. They learned control instead of calmness, defensiveness instead of understanding, emotional suppression instead of regulation. So if you recognize yourself in some of these behaviors, that doesn't make you broken. It makes you human. Awareness is where emotional maturity begins. And emotionally mature men don't become safer by becoming weaker. They become safer by becoming more emotionally grounded. That's real strength. If this resonated with you, take a moment and really think about it. Which of these three behaviors do you see most often in modern relationships? Emotional volatility, emotional dismissal, or weaponizing vulnerability? Drop your answer in the comments. I read them carefully, and honestly, some of the best conversations happen there. And if this topic hit something deeper for you, the next video is going to matter. Because we're going to talk about the subtle behaviors emotionally intelligent women notice immediately in men, before attraction even begins. Not pickup tactics, not manipulation. The small psychological signals that quietly communicate strength, safety, and emotional depth. Because in the end, people don't open up to the loudest person in the room. They open up to the person who feels safest to be real around, and that changes everything.